So I'd said to my coach at the time, I said, Zach, like, I need your help. Like, I know I want to go and share this thing that's happened, and I don't know how to. I am so scared.
Right.
So we got on the phone and he was like, Nicola, you are so selfish. You are so selfish. I remember he slammed me. He slammed me. I was like, okay, done. I was like, I'm going to go and do it. And it didn't stop me from shaking. It didn't stop me from worrying about it.
Right.
But it did give me the confidence and the power to know that that was the right thing to do at the right time.
Hey, I am here with Niyc Pidgeon. She is a positive psychologist, best-selling Hay House author, and a high-performance success coach. So welcome to the Get Loved Up podcast. We're about to dive deep with this woman. Niyc.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
So this is a brand new relationship. When we met, and I didn't tell you this when we were sitting down, but when we first met and all the ladies like hugged each other, I really didn't get a chance to like really connect with you. And so it was so funny when I sat next to you and we talked for like mostly the entire hour, and it just unraveled how beautifully complex your life is. So with all these accolades, I want you to kind of share like kind of your journey, because you share with me like some trauma, some decisions, some things that you went to get to where you are. So can you just share that journey?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's never a straight road from A to B, is it? And it's
Right.
very easy when you look backwards to connect the dots and say, oh, well, that made me this way, or that supported me in this way. And I guess one of the things that served me very well across the 10 years that I've been doing what I do is my intuition. So I knew from an early age that I was supposed to do something big in this world. And at high school, I kind of got taken a little bit off track because whilst my background now is in psychology and in performance and in coaching and in all of the personal development work that we love to do, I was originally supposed to be a mechanical and automotive engineer.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
You would not believe it, right?
No.
So my dad at school wanted me to go and study maths. I did maths and physics already, and he was like, I really think that you should go down this road, Nick, because it's going to be good for you. It's going to open doors. You'll make more money. You'll be a girl in a man's world. And something told me at that early age that it wasn't the right thing for me. And I had my first big breakthrough when I lived in Australia when I was 18, and my partner at the time was a professional cricket player, and he came home from a sports psychology session, and the guy in the session had said, when you're like on the pitch and you're into bat, don't look at the fielders that are standing around you, but look for the gaps in between the fielders instead. So for me, I was like, oh my goodness, we can like apply that to our real lives. There's so many people that focus on the problems and the challenges, and we need to focus on the gaps and the opportunities and what's possible instead. So that kind of gave me a first understanding of what mindset I can choose when adversity and trauma and challenge does strike. So I feel like from a very early age and through all of my study of positive psychology and looking at what works rather than what doesn't work, when actually the challenges and the trauma did hit, I was quite well equipped to deal with them.
And what was some of that trauma that you experienced at an early age?
I mean, from an early age, when I was really, really young, I tried to take my own life when I was 12 years old. And now when I look back at that, it seems like it was a different person.
And what happened? Like, what led you to that point?
I got bullied at school. So my name, Pigeon, I used to get bullied because I was called Pigeon.
Right.
Because it's a ridiculous name. So I used to get bullied really badly because of that and for being intelligent and loving reading. And when I remember to this day, it was actually PE. We call it PE in the UK, like
same thing in the
physical
South.
education.
Yeah, PE.
And I wasn't sporty at all, and I was so scared to go to school that I was just like, I don't want to go. My parents wouldn't listen to me. They're like, you're going to school, Nicola. And I was so terrified of what was going to happen that I took all of the pills out of my mum's pill cabinet so that I couldn't go to school. So I got pulled out of school. I was homeschooled for 6 months. And then my mum and dad actually remortgaged the house so that I could go to a private school. So that was my first experience. And it was something that I'd never really understood how it made me who I am until much, much later. So that happened when I was very young. And then in 2012, I was on the way to the airport from being on holiday in Spain. And I was actually locked in what I thought was a taxi, and I was raped. So more recently, that is probably the thing that I would classify as being the most traumatic experience that I've ever had to deal with. And it's the thing that has allowed me to be happier than ever before.
And what was your thought, like, inside of this taxi? Like, what was going through your mind as this was happening?
Well, it was terrifying.
Right.
I remember afterwards, my counsellor and therapist, when I'd gone to do all of my healing work, she was like, Nick, you could have been dead. She was like, you're a survivor, and that could have turned out so differently. And that wasn't really something that I was processing at the time, because I was just so upset and scared in the moment that I was thinking about how I could actually get out of the car, not the fact that I might not get out. So the thing that I remember most vividly, and it's bizarre what experiences you remember and what those like picture frames are, but it was like I was in this taxi in the back, and there was actually a guy in the front and a guy in the back, and I was screaming at the guy in the front to actually help me. And I remember he was holding one of my legs like this behind, and he let go and he turned the music up louder. And I remember seeing, because it was in Spain, it was a gorgeous sunny day, I remember looking up out of the window on the other side of the car, and we were driving through all of these mountains, and I just saw this blue sky and the tops of the mountains going around and around and around. And that is like my memory of it.
I'm so sorry to hear that. And to see where you are now, like in such a position of power, because, you know, me having similar experiences and knowing how it's possible to change that pain into power. What was your journey in taking that painful experience, that traumatic experience, and turning it into your power?
At first, I completely denied the fact that it ever happened.
Right.
I completely repressed it, and it's typical of like a PTSD kind of process where repression is the first thing. So for 2 years, I completely ignored it. I remember I got on my flight because I was running late, cried all the way home, got into bed that night, woke up the next morning and went straight to the gym and worked out as hard as I possibly could, and threw myself into work, threw myself into fitness, and to do everything that I could to almost replace the feelings and stay really busy so I didn't have to think about it. So that was very much the first phase. Then I started having flashbacks and hallucinations. And for anyone that's ever experienced that, it's like you feel like you're going crazy.
Right.
I was having nightmares. It was just awful. And then these memories started to come back, and I started to remember what had happened. And at the time I was working with a spiritual coach who really, really helped me find the confidence to tell my parents. And when I told my parents, they then sent me to a counsellor and therapist. But what was so hard, and I remember at that time when I started to have these memories come back to me, the feeling was so much shame and so much worry about what my mum would think, what my dad would think. And also my dad's side of the family, my stepbrother on that side, he just shared that he'd actually been raped as well. So my feeling inside of myself was, how can I possibly tell my parents that they now have 2 children that this has happened to?
Wow, that was a lot. And how old were you?
It was in 2014. I have to work this out now. So I'm 31 now. So 2014, I would have been 26 when I shared that. And it was one of the most difficult things that I've ever done, to actually talk to someone about what had happened. I'd never gone through any, despite being a psychologist, I'd never actually had any therapy myself. Everything that I'd done was working with these positive interventions and looking at how you can go from feeling good to feeling great. So I'd never actually had to dive into repeating a traumatic experience or uncovering what that meant for me. And I remember driving to these sessions it was on a Tuesday night. Every Tuesday night I would go, and I'd cry all the way there, and I'd show up to the session, and I'd say, I don't know what to say. Like, I've got nothing to say to you. And then we'd start talking, and it would all tumble out. So it got worse before it got better, but then it did start to get better from there.
So in that moment where you're like, I have nothing to share, you just feel like there was a barrier, or how did you feel?
I felt like I should know what to say, but I didn't know what to say.
Right.
And I felt like there was an expectation from the counsellor. I felt like worried about what she would think of me and what I was supposed to say and what the right thing to say was and how I should process it. And I remember saying to her, I really would love for you to just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. Tell me how to figure this out, and I'll do it. Give me the steps. And she was like, Nick, this is not about me. This is about you.
So at what point did you realize, like, I just have to share everything?
I mean, she encouraged me so much, and I think the consistency and having that safe space was a really huge thing. Having someone that I could talk with no judgment, and going through that process of just figuring out how things felt, and how a lot of it was how that incident was actually creating behaviors or creating decisions in my life at that time. So we looked at how I could actually take empowered steps and what that might look like and what I could do to make myself feel better. So I looked a lot at bigger boundaries, self-care, like doing little things that we know make a little difference, but actually a big difference when they're implemented over time. And then from there, I got more and more confident in understanding that I'd overcome something huge, and that actually in itself was such a gift and such a blessing, rather than it being something to be ashamed of. And eventually I was able to talk about it on the Facebook Live or on stage now as well. But it wasn't always that way. It was definitely something that it took a lot of building myself up, and a lot of kind of coaching myself into knowing that the reason that these things are now shared is actually to give other people strength when they can't see or find it for themselves.
Absolutely. And what do you think were the things, like the self-care things and the boundary things, that you actually practiced when you first started out?
Meditation. I went hard on meditation.
How long would you meditate each day?
For me, I mean, I would meditate for like 3 times a day, and whenever I would feel like I needed it. I don't know how you felt when you've gone through these things, but one of my strongest memories was waking up in the middle of the night feeling terrified and feeling like I was stuck to my bed, like feeling so scared that I couldn't even move. And I was thinking inside of my head, I was like, Nick, if you can just reach your phone and put your meditation on, everything will be good. So that was like, it gave me so much faith, and it gave me so much confidence in like, if I can just put this thing on that can shift the way that I think, and it was actually an Archangel Michael meditation that I used.
Nice.
And so it was like protection and all of this, and that started to make me feel better bit by bit, feeling like I was safe, feeling like I was going to be okay. Because in those moments when it's completely dark and you don't know where to turn and you don't know how to get through the next hour, actually feeling like there is a hope and feeling like there is some sort of comfort is huge.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what are some of the things that, in addition to meditation, so was meditation like really the main one, or were there other things that you practiced?
Meditation and also physical activity. So despite hating sport at school and despite getting bullied when I was a kid, it actually became the thing that I made my research interest and my career. So I was a personal trainer for 10 years.
After going to therapy?
No, during actually.
Oh, okay.
So when I left school, I worked alongside my degrees. So I became a personal trainer, and when I studied, so I did an undergrad in psychology with sport, which was inspired from my ex-partner who was a cricket player. So that kind of started to carve my way in this area of sport and performance. I then did a degree in teaching and lecturing psychology with sport, and then a master's in positive psychology with a specialism in movement. So how moving your body can move your mood. And I think for so long people thought that psychology was just about the brain. But we realized it's actually about your body as well, and it's about embodying that change and understanding that we are a whole person, and we've got to actually like give attention and focus to that.
Absolutely.
So it was very much like, how can I move my body today, regardless of whether that was going to the gym. For some people, it might just be going for a 10-minute walk.
Right.
Or practicing some yoga, something so simple, but it can completely transform the way that you feel.
I love that. Meditation and fitness. Definitely two of my favorites as well. And so how long did it take you to really like be able to talk about it? Or do you feel like you have totally forgiven that situation, or do you feel like it's something that you continue to work with?
It took me 10 months of counseling, which at the time felt like a lifetime. So it took me 10 months to get onto the other side of it, where I could feel happy again, and I could feel like I could focus on a goal rather than focus on just trying to feel better and feel normal again.
Right.
And then after that, I think it was probably about another year after that before I started sharing it more publicly. And the reason for that was that, again, it's a judgment thing. It was a visibility thing, and I knew that I needed to share it to help people, and it almost felt like it was burning inside of me. I mean, you probably felt like this when you wrote your book. Like, it felt like the words had to come out, and there was a time, and it was ready. I felt like that about the rape. And I'd had a few different experiences that I had opened up about. For example, many of my friends actually took their own lives to suicide. So we've had 3 of my close friends in the last 4 years who've taken their own lives.
Wow.
Which is so challenging, and it's something that I feel so passionate and empowered to actually have a conversation around.
Right.
And I remember I put a post onto Instagram saying it was to celebrate a day about raising awareness around this. And it was called Are You OK Day. At the time I was living in Australia.
Right.
And I was like encouraging everyone to open up and have a conversation, because we know that when people talk, it actually reduces the rate of suicide. And I remember I had no idea how popular this post was going to be, or how many people were going to be talking about it, or how important it was. But all of these comments and all of these messages started coming through saying, I'm struggling too. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing about your friends.
Right.
And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I was crying and crying and crying. And I was crying tears of joy.
Right.
And I was crying because there was also something else that I had inside that I wanted to say and couldn't say. So at that time I hadn't shared that I'd been sexually assaulted, because I didn't know how to. And it took for me to work with a coach, for him to tell me and for him to support me in actually being able to share it from the stage.
That's powerful. And so once you realize, okay, you made this post, it needs to be talked about, there are more women experienced in this, and you're with the coach, how long did it take you to really like be like, okay, what was the moment? Was something specific that happened, or what was the moment you're like, okay, I can do it now?
Yeah, so he totally called me out. So it took one session, because I'd kind of been thinking about it for a little while, and the reason that I wanted to share it at this particular time was because I'd won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award in the UK a year earlier, and I'd been invited to give the award to the next year's winner. And when I'd won that award, I'd actually won a second award, which was the Breakthrough Barriers Award, because the people that were giving those, that were judging the competition, knew what had happened to me, but the audience didn't. And I'd said to them, please, please, please don't tell them. Please don't tell them. So they'd given me this award. Nobody really knew one of the biggest reasons why I'd got it. So I felt like I was out of authenticity, and I felt a responsibility for those people who could be helped by that message to actually stand up and share it. So I'd said to my coach at the time, I said, Zach, like, I need your help. Like, I know I want to go and share this thing that's happened, and I don't know how to. I am so scared. So we got on the phone, and he was like, Nicola, you are so selfish. You are so selfish. I remember he slammed me. He slammed me. I was like, okay, done. I was like, I'm going to go and do it. And it didn't stop me from shaking. It didn't stop me from worrying about it. But it did give me the confidence and the power to know that that was the right thing to do at the right time.
You are, I think, the 4th person who's shared with me and said that that was the reason that they finally shared, was that it's not just about me, it's about how sharing this is going to impact so many other people. So thank you for sharing and stepping into your power in that way, because I do feel like I had a really hard time sharing as well, but the only reason I feel that I finally shared is not only for my own healing, but for the fact that it is going to help other people start the conversation. And I do believe that starting the conversation starts the healing. And thank goodness you had those counselors and coaches, but it's so many people that they don't have that access. Yeah. So even listening to this podcast or listening to one of your talks is going to get them through to that next level. And wow, what an amazing just journey of stepping into your power. And now you're a motivational coach for so many. You have a success mastermind, which I'm so excited when you were telling me about the things that you do in this mastermind. So can you just kind of share some of the things that you do to kind of help bring and uplift women? Do you work with men and women, or
I do work with both, but it's mainly women. So I would never say no to a dude.
Right.
But yeah, it is mainly women. So we have the Unstoppable Success Mastermind, which is, I mean, I feel like we just talked for days the other night. It was so amazing. So people come and work with me primarily because they want to set up and scale online businesses, and they want to make more money, and they want to create more success in their lives.
Right.
And they come on these retreats and the masterminds, and they show up thinking that it's going to be one thing, and then they leave at the end with a completely different experience. So we usually don't tell them the schedule or what's going to be taught.
Right.
So they have no judgment, have no expectation. They just get there and they're like, right, this is what it is. And we'll teach them philosophy, we'll teach them psychology. We had a relationships expert there who actually taught sales, and she did some really powerful coaching around relationships and relationships with ourselves.
Right.
We had media and PR experts there. But more than that, like, what really comes through these experiences is the power of transformation. And that's something that isn't always tangible, and it can't be quantified. But seeing a woman that comes in to this 5-day experience and she starts thinking, right, okay, what is the strategy that I can get, Nick? And I'm like, no.
Right.
It's amazing because they then open up and they have breakthroughs, and it was all around trauma. Right. So it's like, it's holding that space and creating that space and asking powerful questions and introducing processes that can actually crack a woman open so that she can start to see and honor her true self and honor her true journey.
Right.
And move forwards from that with the information and the allowing and the acceptance and the love that she can find, and the understanding of, like, this story has happened, it is part of you, and it's time to actually own that wholeness that is you, rather than trying to compartmentalize and forget all of the pieces.
Right.
It's time to actually integrate and time to build from there.
I love that you said heart cracking open, because a lot of people say my heart is broken. But if you look at it as like not broken but cracked open, then you can allow love to like pour into that space. Because it's all about, is the glass half empty or is it half full? And that crack open is looking at it as half full and allowing the love to pour in. That is so beautiful. And what do you feel like is the biggest takeaway from women? Like, they're transforming. Some of them go on to have their own businesses. And do you see a difference between someone who like follows the path and someone who doesn't?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, all of the women at one point or another across that experience, they all had their own experience of breakthrough.
Right.
And it was so fascinating to see it come at different times and represent in different ways. But that actually gives them so much more of a foundation to build a business on and from. Because people think that it's a skills gap that they've got. And that's why they're not creating success within themselves and within their lives. But actually, more than that, it's usually a mindset gap or it's a self-worth gap.
Right.
So it's about finding what that gap is and actually filling the gap, closing the gap.
Right.
And just allowing that woman to stand up and feel more powerful and understand the work that she's here to do in this world, and understand that it's not just about business, it's about impact, it's about contribution, it's about giving back. And the more that we can work together, the more that we can create together.
Absolutely. And I love that the more that we work together, the more that we can create together, because I met you at a women's dinner, and I want you to speak a little bit about sisterhood and what that means to you, because a lot of time there's a lot of comparison, especially successful women, beautiful women. It's like we're always looking and comparing ourselves to someone else. So can you speak a little bit about sisterhood and collaboration?
Yeah, I think I think it's so important in today's world. Like, two of the things that we have as our mission and values within our company are that together we can be, do, create, and have so much more. And when you help others find their greatness, you will find greatness too. So for me, competition doesn't even enter my vocabulary.
Right.
Like, I'm very determined and very driven and hardworking. And if you look at how you can help other people along the way, like, how much more fun is that?
Right.
How much more, it's endless possibilities. And I feel like when you look at the world and how abundant it is, there's enough for everyone. There really is enough for everyone. So why not form awesome relationships? Why not, like, find the fulfillment and help each other along the way? Like, I don't need anything. So I'm like, what do you need?
Right. That's beautiful. And I feel that from the first moment we met. Like, what do you need? What do you need? How can I serve you? How can I serve you?
So good, right?
So, so good. And I also know that you've also had some experiences with relationship and really, like, processing. And I think that's something that goes kind of hand in hand with experiencing that trauma, is really understanding relationship, especially a relationship with the opposite sex. So would you share a little bit about your relationship and what you've dealt with in that area?
Yeah, for sure. And I think coming back to what I said earlier on, I said one of the things that served me really well along this journey of life is intuition.
Right.
And one of the things that I've really learned from relationship is trust. And I think in relationship with a romantic partner, so many people are thinking about, do I trust this other person, or how can I trust this other person? And my learning has actually come from understanding how to trust myself. So
that's powerful.
Yeah. It's been really fascinating, and we always get the lessons again and again and again and again until we listen.
Right.
And I feel like certainly, I mean, in all of our relationships, that's been a learning for me. But more recently, I was in a relationship where I was actually engaged to an amazing guy, absolutely awesome. And it just started to not feel like it was the right thing for me. And it felt like it was pulling me away from what my truth was and what my mission was on this planet.
Right.
So it was fantastic, and I went all in for love. I don't know if you know the story, I lived here in Los Angeles, and I actually moved to Cape Town, South Africa.
No,
to be with this guy.
Wow.
So for all of 2018, I split my time between LA and Cape Town, flying back and forwards to two of the places on the earth that are the furthest apart.
Wow.
So it was a lot, and I'm so grateful that I did it, because it gave me so many new experiences, and it taught me the importance of family, and I had so many fantastic times in that relationship. And it also helped me understand the need for bravery and courage, and what it actually feels like to make a courageous decision for yourself when you know that something feels right, but you're actually scared to do it.
Right.
So for me, I'd been feeling like I wasn't living up to my potential, and that was scary for me. I didn't want to be the girl that had so much potential and threw it all away.
Right.
So I know that I'm here to change the landscape for generations to come in terms of what it means to find strength through struggle.
Right.
And I felt like I wasn't living into my mission and purpose.
In that moment, in that relationship.
In the way that I could do if I was in a different situation, because of the geographical location.
Right.
How that was set up, it was really, really challenging for me to be able to do the things that I wanted to do and grow in the way that I wanted to grow.
Right.
So I made a decision at the start of 2019 actually to leave the relationship and to choose myself instead.
Wow.
And it was so hard. So hard.
Was there anything, like, was the relationship a healthy relationship? Was it just the fact that you didn't feel fully fulfilled in following your calling? Or were there other elements of the relationship that made it very challenging?
It's really interesting, because before I met him, I didn't want children. And he had a child from a previous marriage. And so I got flung into being a stepmom, which was so beautiful and, again, so hard.
Right.
To go from not having a child or not wanting a child to having a child and being in that role.
Right.
I mean, it was a huge stretch.
And how old was the child?
She was 6.
6.
So cute.
Yes. And a girl.
Yes, little girl. So it was amazing to learn that, and it was so hard.
Right.
Hands down, one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah, parenting, I think all parents are like superheroes. Just superheroes, not only to birth a child as a mother, but also just to take care of a little one who is forming their opinions about the world under your care.
Yeah.
I think is just like the most courageous thing people can do, especially when they're present. Of course, anyone can make a baby, but when they're actually present parenting, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And wow, and congratulations on learning that about family, because you said I learned about family.
Yeah,
and
I learned now that I do want my own children. So there's so many beautiful things that have come out of that experience.
Right.
And whilst it was so hard, and it was so hard to balance everything and figure out, it felt like I was going crazy sometimes. It was so challenging.
Right.
And immense gratitude for that. We've always got to be grateful for all of the things, even if at the time they were hard, or even if it was traumatic or challenging, because that ultimately is what provides those building blocks for us to move forwards and grow from.
Absolutely. So beautiful. And what do you feel like now? So you're open to having a family, you want to have children of your own.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you're looking for when it comes to a partner? Because you're successful, and I know it's not easy as a successful, ambitious, or maybe it is easy, but I've definitely had a lot of friends who have expressed it's not, I've experienced, it's not that easy. And so do you want to share kind of what you're looking for and how has it been?
I think one of the interesting things is that I'm so happy on my own.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, it goes back to that thing of is it inside of myself that I'm looking for love, or is it outside of myself? And it needs to be both.
Right.
So I know through the work that I've done on myself, I'm cool on my own. I'm good on my own. And there's something even more amazing that's possible with a partner.
Right.
So for me, it's someone that has similar values. So my values are very much in growth and freedom. So someone that you can grow together with, be excited about that amplification, and two people coming together to create so much more than you can do alone. That excites me. That really excites me.
So a power couple type of dynamic. Okay,
that
I love
really
that.
Excites me.
And it's a dream goal of mine, a power couple. So that really makes you excited to see yourself with someone who you connect with, and together you uplift the world together. That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. So what, I have a question that I ask every single person on the show, and it is, how do you get loved up? So how do you love yourself currently, love others, and love the world?
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Gorgeous. So how do I love myself? For me, so one of my primary love languages is touch. So for me, it's going for a facial, going for a massage, doing the things that allow me to feel that for myself. And also being a hardworking person, I also find it challenging to switch off.
Right.
So my default is okay, I'll do some more work. So it's easier for me if I actually go and do something. So go for a hike, get in nature, go for a massage, go for a spa day. I love driving. That sounds crazy, but that for me, that gives me great peace. Music, driving, chill out, spaciousness. Really simple things. It doesn't have to be something that's super crazy. Just the little things, candles.
Yes. Oh, I love a good candle.
Yeah.
And driving, I also I'm a country girl, so I used to drive a lot into town, and I find it very therapeutic. I even drive in New York.
Wow,
that's
huge as
well.
Nobody drives in New York.
Not many people.
No.
So.
And then I'd say for other people, I am a big gift giver.
Yeah.
I love to give gifts. And one of my rules of life is never show up empty-handed.
Yeah.
So I just think that's one of the things that I love to do. Giving love, hugs, again, a touch thing.
Yes. That's beautiful. Hugs are my favorite thing. So I think we hugged each other a couple of times before we left. And in the world, it's obvious, but you have a couple projects that you're working on that is really giving back to the world. Would you like to share those?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of, the book and then the philanthropic work that I do, I'd love to share some about those projects.
Absolutely.
So the new book is called Force of Nature. So it's still in the development phase.
Right.
And it's really exciting because it deepens the work of Now Is Your Chance, which was my first book.
Right.
And it looks at why why humans actually decide to overcome challenge and adversity and go on to thrive. So I feel like there's so much value in understanding what it is that shapes us and what it is that takes us out of that chaos. Is it a decision? Is it environment? Is it because somebody tells us we can do things a different way? Is it spiritual? Is it genetic? What is it? So that's a real exploration. So, and I see that as way bigger than me. That's like definitely something that is pouring love into the universe and into the world, because it's going to give an unfoldment of a new theory of post-traumatic performance and what it really means, not just to survive or not just to thrive, but to experience trauma and go on to perform better than ever before. So that's something that is really on my heart at the moment. Really
I cannot
exciting.
wait to read it and be a part of it. And
thank you.
It sounds amazing and definitely very necessary. Very necessary right now.
So I'm looking forward to that. And then I do a lot of work as well with United Nations. So there's a campaign, this orange bracelet campaign called One Bracelet, which is around gender equality and ending violence to women. So because of the things I've experienced in my world, I understand the value of showing other people what's possible for themselves too. So I have this campaign that I do a lot of work for. We ran an International Women's Day dinner, which was awesome, and a lot of the awareness and the talking and the speaking around that as well.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your intelligence and everything that you have in your story with us today. We usually put our hands together and throw some love out to the audience. So until next time, get loved up.